Day 2 of Youngspiration pair's oath-taking appeal. Chris Patton rails against Hong Kong independence. And launch date announced for Shenzhen Hong Kong Stock Connect.
Good evening. The Court of Appeal will hand down a ruling next week on the appeal by Youngspiration pair Sixtus Leung and Yau Wai-ching against their disqualification as lawmakers. On the second day of the hearing today, the government's lawyers stressed that all local courts have to follow Beijing's basic law interpretation. Adam Shu has our top story.
At the heart of the Youngspiration duo's appeal was that the court should not have ruled on their oath's validity. They believe that's the business of the legislature. Counsel for the Secretary for Justice rebutted their claim today. Benjamin Yu said LegCo is not a private club, and when a lawmaker is not willing to swear allegiance as required, that's a constitutional question that goes beyond the legislature. And the sole arbitration power rests with the court rather than the oath administrator. Yu added that the separation of powers, a principle that underpins the dual's appeal, means that the court has a constitutional check on the legislative and the executive branches. The pair's lawyers meanwhile argue that no legal proceeding should be brought against the LegCo member unless the LegCo president has declared them disqualified. Yu stressed with the National People's Congress Standing Committee's basic law interpretation, there's no question that the two lost their seats the moment they refused to take the proper oath. Sixtus Leung's lawyer wanted the judges to decide whether the interpretation has amounted to adding to the existing law, because if that's the case, in a common law system, the interpretation would only apply to future cases. Chief Judge of the High Court Andrew Cheung insisted the interpretation, like a court of final appeal judgment, is binding on all local courts.
Given the urgency of the case, the appeal judges are expected to hand down a written judgment as early as next Tuesday or Wednesday. The following day, the court will then hear any request to take the case to Hong Kong's top court. Adam Shu, TVB News.
The Legislative Council president says he will wait until a judgment is handed down before gazetting Yau Wai-ching and Sixtus Leung's LegCo seats. Evelina Leung has that story.
Andrew Leung was asked about the Youngspiration pair's vacant seats today.
We have to bound by the law that within 21 days of two members vacating their offices, then we have to gazette that the vacancy we do have vacancies on the two seats. So this is by law, we have to do it.
However, he insisted this will only be done after the Court of Appeal has handed down a judgment on Yau Wai-ching and Sixtus Leung's appeal case against their disqualification as lawmakers. Leung added if the case goes to the Court of Final Appeal, the Council will follow the directions of the court on gazetting the dual seats. Meanwhile, lawmaker Paul Tse announced he will be putting forward a motion of condemnation against localist Jiang Chong-tai in a full council meeting on December 14th. Tse accuses Jiang of turning the national and SAR flags upside down on the seats of some pro-establishment legislators during a LegCo meeting last month. Tse said this amounted to insulting the country. He said this incident cannot be overlooked, and all Hong Kong and Chinese people are looking to see how the council handles the matter. Tse has the support of DAB's Gary Chan, who said if Jiang doesn't like the flags, then he should not take the oath to become a lawmaker. Jiang denies any wrongdoing.
You said that it should be something very serious and sacrosanct. You will not put two flags, the national flag and the SAR flag, in such a small container on our working bench. And secondly, the flag signifies the person, the office. If the pro-establishment camp will put these flags here, but then you walk out of the chamber and you resort to aborting to resolve a political struggle, how respectful are you towards the flags?
Evelyn Lang, TVB News.
Hong Kong's last governor has accused local independence advocates of diluting support for democracy. Chris Patton, who's only in town for a short visit, warned that it would be a mistake to confuse democracy with independence. Rachel Lung has that story.
During a luncheon at the Foreign Correspondents' Club today, Hong Kong's last governor weighed in on the controversial topic of Hong Kong independence.
It would be dishonest, dishonorable, and reckless of somebody like me to pretend that the case for democracy should be mixed up with an argument about the independence of Hong Kong. Something which is not going to happen, something which dilutes support for democracy, and something which has led to all sorts of antics which should not take place in a mature society aiming to be a full democracy.
He added that it would be a tragedy if the moral high ground gained during the 2014 Occupy Central movement was lost because of what he called a few antics about Hong Kong independence.
I respect that Chris Patton, his point of view, but either that is possible or not, it is workable or not, I mean Hong Kong independence or self-determination. This is still at least a number of Hong Kong people's wishes. And also we must, as the one being elected, we must respect this. And also, in 2014 case, during Umbrella Revolution, we also understand that if we still want true democracy, we need to deal with the relationship between Beijing government and Hong Kong. This is a must.
Patton also had this to say about the oath-taking saga.
Taking oaths isn't something of a lark. Moreover, the situation in Britain, which seems to me to be a perfectly reasonable one, is if you won't take an oath, you can't join the club.
On Beijing's latest interpretation of the Basic Law, Patton said that as the matter was already being handled by the local court, it would have been more sensible for the central government to leave it to the Hong Kong judiciary to sort it out. Rachel Lang, TVB News.
Two pro-establishment lawmakers, Martin Liao and Tommy Cheung, have been named executive council members with immediate effect. Cheung brushed aside suggestions his appointment had anything to do with the upcoming CE election or was in exchange for his party's support for Leung Chun-ying's possible re-election bid.
This has nothing to do with the Liberal Party. I have never been asked that being an executive council member, that I would have to bring all my LP colleagues along with me to do whatever. So I don't think that is part of the agenda. I don't believe this is a reward. I believe this is a challenge that I could help in some way, hopefully, that the government can, in the government of Hong Kong. So I don't believe this is a reward.
The Shenzhen Hong Kong Stock Connect scheme will officially be launched on December 5th. The scheme will allow international investors to trade close to 900 Shenzhen-listed stocks. Meanwhile, mainland investors will be allowed to trade around 400 Hong Kong stocks. The China Securities Regulatory Commission has described the scheme as an upgraded version of the existing Shanghai-Hong Kong stock link. That means there will be no upper limit on shares offshore investors can hold. In an effort to end Colombia's 52-year civil war, the country's president and its largest rebel movement have signed a revised peace agreement. But critics say it doesn't do enough to punish the rebels. President Juan Manuel Santos and Rodrigo Londano, leader of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, signed the 310-page pact with a pen made. Thousands of Colombians chanted, "Yes, we did," as they crammed the streets of Bogota to witness the signing ceremony on big screens. The new agreement was put together in just over a month. This after the original document was narrowly defeated in an October 2nd referendum for being too lenient on the insurgent group. But Santos, who won the Nobel Peace Prize for his peace efforts, wants this deal passed quickly to maintain a fragile ceasefire. The new accord introduces some 50 changes, stating, for example, foreign magistrates are prohibited from judging crimes by the FARC rebels. It also includes a commitment from the rebels to forfeit assets amassed through drug trafficking to help compensate their victims. But the group wouldn't go along with the opposition's strongest demands: jail sentences for rebel leaders and stricter limits on their future participation in politics. Opposition leader and former president Alvaro Uribe spearheaded the push to reject the original accord. He's disgusted that Santos didn't live up to his promise of giving Colombians the final word in a referendum. Because Santos is now trying to push the deal through Congress, Uribe's calling on Colombians to oppose the pact. Many conservative residents are outraged over the revised deal. They say it offers no jail time for the FARC leaders who committed war crimes, kidnappings, and massacres, and it allows them to hold political office. Santos will now introduce the accord to Congress, where a solid majority is expected to ratify it as early as next week.
Police in southern France are searching for a gunman suspected of stabbing to death an elderly woman in a retirement home for Catholic missionaries. An unusually large police operation has been launched in the search for the attacker, believed to be armed with a shotgun. Police were alerted by a woman who works at the retirement home. She said she'd been attacked. When officers arrived, they found the body of another woman tied up outside the building and with 3 stab wounds. The identity of the assailant and motive for the killing are unclear.
Still ahead in our newscast, tutorial centers accused of copyright infringement. Man U post crucial Europa League win. And saying thanks in the United States.
Welcome back. Customs officers have arrested 14 employees of a tutorial center franchise and seized more than $500,000 worth of equipment. As Anne-Marie Sim reports, the case has to do with copyright infringement.
The raids, carried out on 13 chain tutorial centres on Wednesday and yesterday, netted 50,000 pages of tutorial notes, 25 computers, 13 photocopiers, worth a total of $580,000. 6 men and 8 women aged between 27 and 55 were arrested, including a tutorial centre director and a manager.
We believe that the teachers are acting on the directives of the manager or the proprietor of these tutorial centers. So at this stage, we have not arrested any teacher. We only arrest those proprietors of these branches or managers.
More than 3,000 files of suspected infringing tutorial notes were found on the confiscated computers. Officers found that the teaching materials were photocopied from at least 100 books.
This is the largest one since 2010. As far as we are aware, there are a lot of tutorial centers operating out there, but there is no indication that they are doing some sort of infringement crime at this stage. The operators of these tutorial centers, they have the responsibility to ensure that the materials they deliver to the students are not infringing materials.
The centre offers tutorial classes for English, Chinese and mathematics for primary 1 to secondary 3 students. It has been open for more than a year and has 13 branches. The owner of another tutorial centre said that especially during exam preparation time, it is common practice for tutorial classes to reference past papers from different schools when drafting mock exams for the students. Anne-Marie Sim, TVB News.
The Civil Aviation Department has again tried to ease public concern about the new air traffic control system. As Winna Wong reports, the head of the department insists what's happening now amounts only to teething problems.
Members of the press were given a tour of the Civil Aviation Department's new air traffic system today. The department's Director General, Simon Lee, said minor glitches at this stage are normal.
It's not unusual for this kind of occurrence to be more frequent when the new system is in operations for the first few weeks. We hope that through fine-tuning and enhancement, the situation will be further improved. But as I'd like to emphasize that there's no safety implications.
But Lee stopped short of revealing the number of specific incidents, saying that would create unnecessary panic among members of the public. There have been reports of glitches since the new system replaced the old one on November 14th. The department has acknowledged an incident in which one flight disappeared from the radar system for 12 seconds. And yesterday, Civic Party lawmaker Jeremy Tam, who's a pilot himself, claimed 6 more planes had gone off the radar. Tam said there are also problems with phantom planes, which is the radar detecting one aircraft at 2 different positions at the same time, or even seeing planes that aren't actually in the air. Meeting the press this afternoon, Tam said he is still receiving news of planes disappearing off the radar.
They keep saying the system itself is okay. None of these, all of these is just, teething problem. But this is not teething problem, okay? This is more than just a teething problem.
Tam says these incidents make it very difficult for frontline staff to decide what instructions should be given to flights. The Civil Aviation Department has not responded to the latest claims. Winna Wong, TVB News.
In more overseas news, the European Union's parliament overwhelmingly voted to demand that the bloc freeze membership negotiations with Turkey. This over the heavy-handed crackdown that followed a failed coup in July. Turkey immediately condemned the resolution, and its president has threatened to open its gates to migrants trying to get to Europe. Alan Buknia reports.
Tens of thousands of people, including teachers, journalists, and opposition lawmakers, have been arrested or fired in Turkey since the attempted coup. Although the vote by EU lawmakers carries no immediate consequences, it underscores the increasing unease over the tightening on power by Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Turkish Prime Minister Binali Yildirim said the decision had no significance and relationships between Turkey and the EU weren't good anyway. The man in charge of Turkey's negotiations accused the EU of poisoning against Turkey. Ömer Çelik, Turkey's Minister for European Union Affairs, said without Ankara's help, Europe would be flooded by a wave of migrants. He said cutting off talks would be far more damaging for Europe than Turkey. As part of the deal to restart negotiations on EU membership, Turkey agreed to prevent refugees from reaching Europe. It also agreed to take back migrants who came through the country on their way to Northern Europe, but were not given status in the country they ended up in. EU officials have told Çelik that despite the parliamentary vote, the long-standing but largely unsuccessful membership talks would not be immediately halted. Meanwhile, the killing of 3 Turkish soldiers in northern Syria has been claimed by Islamic State. Turkey had blamed a pre-dawn Syrian military airstrike, but the extremist group posted a video on its news agency that it said was a suicide attack. Alan Buknia, TVB News.
Next, bloodshed not far from Iraq's capital. A car bomb ripped through a gas station south of Baghdad yesterday, killing at least 73 people. Islamic State has claimed responsibility. At least 40 of those killed were Iranians. Dozens more were wounded in the attack in Hilla, which almost completely destroyed a gas station and several nearby stores. It also set a number of cars on fire. Islamic State says a suicide truck bomb triggered the attack. Iraqi officials said the target seemed to have been a bus carrying Iranian pilgrims home. They were taking part in a major Shiite event in the holy city of Karbala. All right.